Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined by a candidate, Mr. Nathan Clay. He is running for Congress in Colorado, District 7. So he was recommended to me by a few people, including one who is part of our RP team. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate that you're giving people like me a platform because really I think that, we have the policies that the American people want. It's just letting them know that we're actually running, that we're out there. So this is an alternative to other sources of news and media that can really allow us to get our name out there and make a competitive campaign happen with few resources.
Absolutely, right on. So you are running. Now, what did you run before this?
Yeah, I've run a couple of times, so it's actually an interesting history on that. The most interesting time that I've had running was I ran as a Bernie Sanders endorsing progressive Republican in Missouri once. And so the reason I did that was because the entire political apparatus of Missouri is controlled by the Republican Party. So in many districts, they're completely set up to only favor the party that essentially controls the state. So I figured, why not take the progressive message to their primary? If we win it, we could actually win the seat instead of, just kind of winning a primary that leads to nowhere, which is essentially what most Democratic primaries, especially in southern Missouri, are. So I ran there. I mean, it didn't go particularly well when it came to, driving voter turnout. Turns out Missouri Republicans, not a big fan of progressives, not a huge surprise really. But it gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of people and get my message out there because people were more interested in that than just, another Democrat running on some Democratic policies. It was more interesting doing it as a Republican anyway, from the perspective of people who might cover it in the news.
Right on. Yeah, before I started the show, I was very like, fuck the Dems. Anyone who runs anything, besides third party, F them, But then when I started doing the show, I started interviewing people running as Republicans and Dems and such because they have no other choice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. I have no party loyalty. Honestly, I think that the major political parties in this country, they're just up to their eyeballs in corporate money, and they just have a multi-decade history of selling people out.
Yeah.
So obviously it's, we got to fight to change that. And I think America's first past the post, plurality voting system kind of makes it so that it's a two-party game. When you get beyond that, you start getting this, spoiler vote argument, and people start talking about lesser of two evils. So, ranked choice voting, approval voting, we got some things that are some solid options that would solve these problems. But until we get people in office who are willing to implement those things, we kind of have to work our way through this terrible, awful system that already existed before we got here.
Absolutely. I'm I'm looking at the comments, and you guys, he is 31 years old.
Yeah.
I already asked him. Trust me, I already asked him because I knew that was gonna happen. You guys know I complain because I'm 40 and I look 25. Okay, he's 31. He's legal. He's running.
Yeah, so
It's happening.
like I was just discussing right before we started here, I think that the kind of voters who vote for candidates like me really vote for policies over what people look like. So they kind of understand that the secret to politics is pretty simple, and that it's that there's really just one question that matters in most circumstances, and it's what does this candidate support? What are they going to vote for once they're in office? What they look like, what they dress like. These things don't really matter, and we give them so much more importance than they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I love Bernie, because he really doesn't give two shits. Dude doesn't even comb his hair.
Yeah,
he's got work to do.
No, I got that right behind. Yeah.
So you have the the typical progressive platform. Why did you decide to run this time?
Well, I mean, basically, I think that we need a progressive running in every district throughout the nation, people who are going to put progressive bills on a progressive president's desk. And we don't have that right now. Ed Perlmutter is the Democratic incumbent, and we're not going to get that out of him. So I saw that, I decided to run, and I figured that, you know, if no one else is going to do it, then I will do it. This is something that I've been passionate about for a long time, and I'm confident that, you know, even though there may occasionally be things that I'm unfamiliar with, that I have the right kind of judgment. I come at this from the right perspective. You know, I'm not trying to make millions of dollars for myself or for a whole bunch of corporate donors, which we don't have. We don't take money from corporations or corporate PACs. I'm just getting involved because I see that there's so many things that are broken, and we've had the solutions figured out for like 100 years. Politician after politician has talked about universal health care, about you know, really tuition-free education. That's not even a new idea. Many of the things that are catching fire right now, they're not new ideas. We've had these solutions for a really long time. So it's just about having a political movement where we get people in office that are willing to do those things. And I think right now it's happening. It really looks like it's happening all throughout the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think that the incumbent you're running against, do you think that they will debate you?
I'd hope so. I'd really like to. I guess it depends how the campaign goes. I think that the more we gain traction, the more pressure it applies. And if we eventually hit that tipping point, I think that they would have no choice, because we will set up events and we will invite our opponent to speak with us and speak with the people at the same time as us and answer questions with us. And eventually, I think that, you know, it'll be like AOC. If you watch, you know, the Netflix documentary there, you know, at first they didn't take her very seriously, but by the end of it, she had applied so much pressure that they were scheduling events with her.
Yeah, right on. So is it just you and the incumbent right now?
Yeah, it was up until very recently. I did see I keep track of a couple websites that tell you these things, and I saw somebody had filed, but I don't see that they have a Facebook or a website or any real information out there or anything like that. So I don't know anything about them, what they stand for, what they're about. But I did see that somebody else is interested. But up until just a week or a week and a half ago, it was just me and the incumbent, yes.
Okay, cool. So let me see, I'm just scanning these comments. So why, sorry, I'm getting distracted with the comments. Okay, so you support Medicare for all, which every progressive does. Now, I just started having to ask this recently, but what kind of Medicare for all do you?
Yeah, so I would say Bernie Sanders style Medicare for all, where we eliminate for-profit health insurance corporations. I think that's kind of really where I start kind of asking the question for the differences here is, how friendly are you to corporations still being involved? Because I see this as a question of, should we have two-tiered healthcare in this country, where we have a private insurance corporations providing so-called premium care to wealthier folks, and then everybody else being on Medicare for all that may suffer from longer wait times and will just be victimized by cuts and defunding by Republicans and wealthy folks, since they have, you know, private insurance still. So I think that would be the number one thing that we'd see if we implemented some sort of Medicare for all system that still had for-profit insurance.
Absolutely. And you also have Green New Deal, obviously. Mm-hmm. What do you think are the most important parts of that, the bill?
Well, I think to make it work, the most important part is a transitional funds, a transitional plan for all the people who are going to be impacted by it. I think if you don't do that right, it's going to be a disaster. So Bernie just recently came out with kind of his version of the Green New Deal, and it includes this. It's a really big thing. Now, I think that completely renewable energies for transportation, especially, and electricity at homes by 2030. I think that's a pretty realistic goal. I think by 2050 we can completely get off of fossil fuels entirely. So I think that those need to be front and center. And then we could start looking at the specifics and details behind a carbon tax, especially one that could be used as sort of a dividend that pays back to the American people in some way. So it could be a tax on people who use a lot of carbon or corporations that pollute heavily, and it could benefit folks who don't.
Right on. So do you support a federal jobs guarantee?
Yeah, I do. I think that this is kind of another policy of transition, because I do think that we are going to have to be looking at something like UBI over a few decades to deal with the issues that automation, 3D printing, artificial intelligence, new technologies are going to bring into the economy. But right now, I think before we get to some sort of UBI status, I think that a job guarantee is what we need to look at. Get everyone employed, get everyone working, make sure that everyone who wants a job has one. And then over time, when the economy starts being really hindered by these, or not the economy really, but employment, really, the value of human labor, it gets hindered by these new technologies, then we start scaling that off into some sort of UBI. That's multiple decades from now, though, I believe. Now, technology may move faster than that. I don't know, but right now, I just don't think there's enough, general purpose robots to take all of the jobs, really.
Yeah, it's kind of a fear tactic at this point, it seems. So let me see. Sandy, his platform is on his website. What is your website, Nathan?
It's NathanClayForCongress.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just.
Oh, okay.
Finishing up that thought, I guess.
So with the federal job guarantee, do you support a $15 minimum wage?
Yeah. Well, I think that should be done really right now, regardless. I think that generally that has a lot more support among the American people. A $15 an hour minimum wage, being able to live in dignity, because you're employed full time, I think makes sense to a lot of people. But yeah, I think that you do both of those. I think if you do both of those things, we'll see a society that has much less inequality in it, much less poverty and needless human suffering.
And let me see. Okay. So in your district, how is your, well, I should say as your state, what is your minimum wage in the state of Colorado?
Yeah, right now, I believe it's currently in the process of scaling up to around $12. So it would be a minimum wage increase for the state of Colorado.
I'm in Pennsylvania, and ours is $7.25.
Wow, so federal. It matches the federal wage, then. That is brutal. I mean, it's completely insane to me, honestly, that is the case anywhere in this country. I mean, when you really break it down, that's something like $15,000 a year before you pay out any expenses. I mean, you really can't be expected to live off of that. I mean, I'm sure you've seen memes and other things, or studies, research, whatever, that show the cost of living in each state, and doesn't match up with the minimum wage anywhere.
No, absolutely not. So also, with the Green New Deal, do you have good infrastructure where you are? Do you guys have good transit?
Yeah, all right. So Our issue is that we're growing very quickly. So what was sufficient 5 or 10 years ago is not really anymore because of immense population growth. So it's kind of a mixed bag on that. We do make really, really good investments, and we actually have a number of people, even within the Democratic Party in this state, that are pretty progressive, and try to make sure that we're offering public transit options, and that we're trying to stand against the folks who would try to do a lot of privatization of our infrastructure. So I would say that yes, we do, but it's going to need significant investments to keep up with the population growth, and that may not happen.
Right. So you also talk on your website about universal childcare. So I digress, but what is that something that people in your area are talking about that they need access to?
Well, yeah, I think that if you speak to obviously certain demographics, people who are parents, they will tell you that, there's many households where someone wants to work, but they can't because they have to pay more money for childcare than they would make from their job. So yeah, absolutely. If you talk to the people who are directly impacted by this issue, definitely they say that this is something that they need help with, that's holding them back, that's holding their family back, that really brings a lot of stress onto them. And you can kind of combine this in with early childhood education as well, which is what Elizabeth Warren has done. So not only is it universal childcare, but it's also a lot more funding for early childhood education.
Matthew, a buddy of ours, actually just posed the question in the comments that I was going to ask. So he says, how does Nathan feel about cannabis legalization? And does he think Colorado's current model is something that could work nationally?
Definitely, yes. So I am fully supportive of cannabis legalization, ending the war on drugs, reforming the criminal justice system, but speaking only of cannabis right now. What we have here seems to be working well. It's generating a lot of money, it's generating a lot of revenue, and it's also freeing up law enforcement resources that never really should have been messing with people who were smoking cannabis in the first place. And yeah, I don't see any issues with it here in this state. In fact, it has inspired a lot of that growth I was talking about, that the infrastructure needs to keep up with. Well, I think that it's pretty evident that the marijuana and cannabis, whatever you want to call it, the industry is strong here. It's created a lot of jobs. It's created a lot of tourist revenue. And it's overall been good for the state of Colorado. That's my opinion. I think other people might share other opinions. I think some of them were running for president up until recently. But yeah, I'm fully supportive of it. I don't, realistically, this is something, our government treats drugs in general. It just has a completely backwards perspective on it. It's treating people like criminals, when in the very worst case of these scenarios, you should really be treating this as a public health issue, not cannabis specifically, but drug use in general. Because obviously cannabis is in a different category of drugs than some other drugs.
Which candidate said something about cannabis? Was it Gillibrand?
No, it's Hickenlooper. So Hickenlooper is from Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he wasn't super enthusiastic about the whole thing while it was happening. Kind of reluctantly went along with it. But if it was up to him instead of the citizens, I do not think it would have happened.
Wow. So what do people like him there?
No one I know does. Then again, I hang out with progressives, so probably a little bit in my bubble. But no, I mean, we recently had presidential debate watch parties, and I don't know if there's more cheering for Bernie or more booing at Hickenlooper. It's a tough call. It's a really tough call.
That's funny. Um, yeah, I'm kind of gonna miss like him and Delaney and everyone being on stage. Um, so you have comprehensive immigration reform.
Mm-hmm.
In your district, what is the makeup, lack of a better term?
Well,
Do you guys have people of color in your district?
absolutely. Yeah, you know, all throughout the Denver area, there's a large amount of diversity in a lot of the communities. Now, Denver itself is gentrifying quickly because rent is going through the roof. I mean, it's like $1,600 a month for little tiny places downtown right now. It's crazy. So, but the areas around Denver, which is where I live in the 7th district. Denver is District 1. Those areas are a lot more diverse, and my district is included in that. And I think that really the political atmosphere here is really, you know, impacted and influenced by that.
Right on. So do you have anything in your district where as ICE agents have shown up, or do you have immigrants in your area who fear for their safety?
Yeah, I'm sure that we do. I haven't heard any personal stories directly from anybody. I do say that we are lucky that we really have good state and local governments when it comes to these sorts of things. They tend to side with the people instead of siding with the federal government. But yes, I think people in every state all throughout this country are fearful right now. I mean, the Trump administration and their tactics are designed to create fear, and it's succeeding. So this is something that I think, you know, every candidate, regardless of your proximity to the border or what the configuration of your district looks like, this is something that is part of like the fabric of America, right? So I think we all need to be focused on this.
Absolutely. You do have criminal justice reform on your platform. That's kind of a broad topic. So what issues specifically would you like to address should you get elected? What will be your priorities?
Yeah, sure. So I think the good starting point for this would be the criminal justice reform legislation Bernie introduced about a week ago. That was basically, it's like the wish list, right? I mean, it abolishes the death penalty, abolishes facial recognition for law enforcement purposes, sets up a federal commission for body cams, federal database for police use of force, demilitarizes the police forces, ends the war on drugs. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg of it as well. And I agree with all of those things. I think right now in some places our prison system is legalized torture, and even worse, in other places it's legalized slavery. So these are huge issues, and even just the little things like how much money it costs to call a family member from prison is insane. It's just ridiculous. It's out of this world. So everything up and down, the huge reforms, the tiny reforms, we need to do them all. And Bernie's recently introduced legislation, really, it covers pretty much the progressive wish list. And it's the kind of legislation I would support in the House. It's what I would want to put on his desk if we're lucky enough to have him as our president.
Please.
I know. Wouldn't that be such a refreshing change of pace? Seriously.
So I probably don't have to say this, you guys, because you guys watch me, but yes, Nathan has endorsed Bernie 2020. They know that if I'm having someone on, they've got to at least be leaning towards it because I don't want neolibs on here.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And yeah, I've been all about Bernie since the 2016 campaign. I've really been about progressive politics since kind of like the Bush administration's response to 9/11, that like I was like 13 years old when 9/11 happened. So that happened at a time when it was really influential on my life, and the wars, and then eventually economic collapse. All of these things played a big role in, you know, influencing who I am today. But Bernie running for office kind of showed me, you know, you don't need to be a politician, that kind of person, to win an election and to inspire people and to do well. You know, all you have to do is stand up and say, you know, basically point out, these are the people who are screwing us over. This is the reason why the healthcare system, education system, environmental protection policies, all of these things are screwed up, because the same people are buying the government, having them write legislation for them. We don't have to do things that way. We can do it differently. We can write the legislation ourselves, stuff that benefits us and our children, future generations. And that is possible now, I think, you know, kind of like there's been a lot of trailblazers that made it a lot more possible, and the internet. The internet has made this happen. What we're doing is possible now. So lots of things coming together, and I think that they're all going to work together to change the world.
So do you think that as far as, you know, these programs and all of these things on progressive platforms, do you think that they're feasible when corporate money is still in play?
No. Well, some of them. You could probably twist their arms into giving us some of these things, or at least watered down versions of them, right? But to actually get what we want, to really, really change the healthcare system, education system, all of these things, we're going to have to get corporate money out. I mean, the person I'm running against already has $1 million. And they're taking money from like US Bank and from Visa and Citigroup and Boeing and Raytheon, and you name a terrible corporation, there's at least a 50-50 shot there on the list. So and so, you know, who's he going to fight for? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? So I think that we got to get corporate money out of there. We need to elect people in the Senate, in the House. We need to elect a president who believes in overturning Citizens United and ending corporate personhood.
Absolutely. You talk about make election day a national holiday, which not a lot of candidates post things like this, and it's so important. So can you touch on why you have that on your platform?
Yeah, so there really doesn't seem much more worth celebrating in this country than our democratic process. The involvement in it should be encouraged at every single level, right? So right now, we have a system that makes it hard to vote. In many states, it intentionally makes it incredibly hard to vote, especially if you live in certain areas that, you know, but Election Day as a national holiday allows people to go out there and have their voice heard. And also, you know, I think we should also give people a tax incentive for voting. I actually believe that. I think that unlike other countries where you get penalized for not voting, I think that we should give people a tax incentive for voting. So if you do come out and vote, then you get a little bit of a bonus on your taxes. It's not huge or anything, but it does make up for some people lose wages on holidays. Some people don't get paid holidays. So at least this way, the people who don't get paid holidays wouldn't ultimately lose out on that money.
Interesting. I never heard someone propose that. It's kind of sad that we'd have to give an incentive for people to vote, but if it gets people off their asses, I'm all for it.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, other countries penalize you. So you get like a tax penalty for not voting. You know, I don't like that as much, but a little bonus for doing it sounds all right to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. As far as also elections, what about rigging and cheating? Like Bernie got screwed in 2016. All of us know that. So as far as your primary goes, are you at all worried? Like, do you have poll workers?
No, we don't. I'm worried, of course. Obviously, anytime that you're running within one of the major parties, you have to be concerned that they're going to tip the scales against you. And in fact, I'd be surprised if there wasn't some, I'm not going to say rig because that's a little harsh, But if there wasn't some favoritism and an extreme amount of pressure applied against me, if I ever really gain traction and start threatening my opponent here, or not, I mean their seat, not threatening my opponent.
Yeah.
But yeah, so of course, but you just kind of have to deal with it. That's how the two-party system works in this country. And until, like I said earlier, you have approval voting or ranked choice voting, I really don't see a way around it. And I think that if there is a way around it, it's all of us getting together and getting out there and showing up in overwhelming force and just winning, because I think that even if it is stacked against you, that you can still overcome it.
And what do you say to people who say, screw it, my vote doesn't count. There's no point. It was stolen from us last time. Why should I bother? How do you encourage people to stop being defeatist and to get out there?
All right, well, man, it's a really tough one, right? So I guess this might be some controversial waters to steer into. I don't know. But would you say that Donald Trump had a lot of institutional favoritism for him? Or do you think that generally there was a lot of stuff in place that would maybe make it more difficult for him to win? Now, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, obviously, but I do think that there were many, many powerful institutions that really didn't want him to win. And there's a lot of people in this country with a lot of views that I do not share who came out, and they kind of overcame a lot of that by just showing up and voting.
Absolutely.
And these are people who are the most jaded and cynical. They sat on the sidelines for years and years and years waiting for somebody truly monstrous enough. And then finally Trump came along with just that right amount of hatred. And there you go. So I think that you could do the opposite of that. Have a campaign built on logic and reason and good policies, and inspire people that way. And I know it didn't work out for Bernie Sanders, but that's not the only progressive campaign in the history of the universe. It has worked out for other people before.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Like, Trump had the energy. Even though he's garbage, he got people excited, just
Totally.
like Bernie did. So, yeah, unfortunately, I see some people talking about mailing in their ballots. We don't have that option. Do you guys have that?
We do, and it's great, and everyone should have it. That's something that I didn't mention earlier, just slipped my mind. We do have that here, and it is really what we should be aiming for. It's better than making Election Day a national holiday. I mean, it will increase voter turnout more, and it's definitely something that we need to do in everywhere across the country. Paper ballots, mail-in ballots, everywhere.
Now, do you guys have an open primary?
Yeah, we have kind of a complicated situation. Our presidential primary and our presidential decision and the congressional decisions are separate circumstances here. But yes, we do have an open primary, and but I don't really know how much people utilize that. I'm sure independents are forced to kind of team up with one side or the other every time we go around. But if there's a follow-up on here about, can we maybe have some crossover and try to get people that maybe some disillusioned Republicans, that's really difficult. It's a lot easier said than done. People are just not, they don't seem willing to do it. Even if they really like you a lot. Apparently it's asking too much of a lot of people.
That's why everyone should just register independent and F all this shit and just like vote person, not party. It would be utopian compared to this crap. Seriously.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. You talk about building a nationwide coalition. So were you an activist before, say, November 9th, 2016?
Yeah, well, I guess to some degree. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I was that I dedicated my entire life throughout my teenage years and early 20s to it or anything, but like I said, during the Iraq War, I was Afghanistan and Iraq. I was like 15 to 18 years old or so, and there were a lot of demonstrations, even where I was in southern Missouri, where George Bush was really popular and the wars were actually really popular. There were still pockets of people who were protesting, and then 2008, or the financial collapse came around and Occupy happened. So, that was also a thing that I, got to be a part of a little bit, not enormous amounts, because, like I said, southern Missouri really kind of, it's little pockets. So I would say no. I wouldn't say that I dedicated my life to it or that I was a huge activist or anything like that. But it's something that's always been a passion of mine. Something I've always cared really, really deeply about. And I just saw how much suffering happens in the world because of political and economic decisions that are made by people nobody likes anyway. And I mean, we do have a shred of democracy here. So it seems like if you don't care about politics, that's always seemed like the weird thing to me, to not be obsessed with this stuff, because it affects so many people. It affects the entire world. So that's kind of how I feel about that.
So when you speak to people, and have you started canvassing and phone banking and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, we went door to door a bit, had a couple of events, one with a progressive Senate candidate who is running against Cory Gardner. So that is her poster up there, Lorena Garcia. She's great, very progressive Senate candidate. And yeah, I've also went door to door, done some phone banking, sent out a lot of letters to people. Really kind of focusing on people who are supporters of candidates or politicians, not like AOC, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and we've had a lot of luck. Obviously, we're reaching out to people who share our values for sure. There's really have very little amounts of negative feedback from our marketing campaigns, but our door to door, that can go either way. That's a lot of fun sometimes.
It's always interesting. I'm not looking forward to doing it again for Bernie, to be honest.
At first, I was really nervous about it, but that faded really quickly. I got into it. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's almost more fun when they disagree with you, as long as they aren't disagreeing you in a violently threatening way. It's almost more fun than just saying, "Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, oh totally." So I actually found that I enjoy door-to-door campaigning quite a bit.
A lot of it was cool. I got to give a lot of people hugs, so that was cool.
Yeah.
But then you got I was with my husband, and that was fine. But then when I would go with another girl, it would be like, shame on you for not voting for the woman, and we'd get that shit. So it was just like, and this time it might be even worse. So
maybe, who knows? It could be. I'm really interested to see how it plays out. Obviously, there's only a handful of people who are really making some noise, in terms of getting enthusiasm behind their campaign. But I'm interested to see how it plays out. My main thing is I hope Joe Biden does not win the Democratic primary. That is the #1 thing on my wish list.
I'm terrified.
And I would prefer Bernie to win. But it's not like I'm going to throw a hissy fit and not be involved or protest or whatever if Bernie doesn't.
I will.
The thing is that, realistically, I think that if we compare this to, there's a difference, I think, between maybe a Kamala Harris and an Elizabeth Warren. I do see a difference between the two. And I would be less sad with Elizabeth Warren.
I don't think I would.
I would. I'm not, she obviously not my first choice, but I really think that we could get a lot of good things accomplished. And I'm not saying that I would support her over Bernie at all, but I would support her over Donald Trump in a heartbeat. Like,
I mean,
that
that's
sounds
not
like,
saying too much. You
well,
know
no,
what I mean? That's
obviously
like the
not. Like,
lowest bar ever.
no, I mean, I would go into her presidency with a level of optimism that we would be able to accomplish some really good things. Depending on how Congress acts, I think we could get some stuff done. Where a lot of these candidates are going to stand more in the way of the kinds of things that we want to see done, and there's really very few circumstances in which they would do truly good things for us.
Yeah, that's why I'm all in on Bernie. I trust him.
No, I'm with you on that. Obviously, I'm a huge Bernie supporter, and I have been for a few years, and I'm really hoping that he wins the nomination.
Hell yeah. And if you go, you know, while you're going canvassing and stuff, you can always bring Bernie stuff too. Burners
Yeah,
support other burners. When
absolutely.
you tell
Yeah,
people you're supporting Bernie, they're going to try to help you immediately.
absolutely. And really, I found that, like, all right, so Bernie, actually, the campaign is really kicking up around here already. And so I found that, just going out there and supporting Bernie, not even really doing my thing, just supporting Bernie and then just mentioning to people while I'm there what I'm up to, that's a really good strategy for me as well. And I mean, getting out there and doing stuff along with all the other Bernie people. So even if I'm not hitting up doors or hitting phones for myself at the time, I am hitting up the people who are part of the campaign and are probably more familiar in many ways at organizing these things than I am. I would say my primary weakness is just a lack of familiarity with the mechanisms of politics.
But I think that is something that you can and do learn.
Absolutely.
Now,
You look at people like
yeah.
AOC. She didn't have a breadth of experience going into her her first term here, but she has been able to adapt, and she has had a lot of dexterity here and is essentially a nationwide superstar who is defining a lot of what we're talking about when it comes to especially the Green New Deal. Like, she was really influential there.
Yeah, I think that people, it's, to me, it's about the issues. If you support all the right issues, I will be patient and willing for you to try and get in there and learn how things work. That's how it is with every job in the universe. So
Yeah,
we just need to get people in who actually support what we do.
exactly.
That is the most important thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just going to say, I completely agree with you. And I think that is why we're seeing kind of this unexpected success from all of these young candidates or folks who don't have much political experience, because the American people are more concerned about other things now. They don't necessarily care if you've been in politics for 20 years. In fact, many times that works against you.
Yeah.
They don't have the kind of experience that my generation for sure respects. So, I think that people are willing to look past it, like you just said. And as long as you're really committed to fighting for the right kind of policies, I think that's all that matters. And it's all that matters to me as a voter. When I vote, that is what I vote on. So I know, just speaking from my own personal experience, that some people feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to leave the audience with a final thought, something that they can take away from this, so that they can perhaps send this to people they know in Colorado or anything like that, what would you like them to take away?
Yeah, so I'd probably just sort of repeat something that I said earlier, and that the secret to politics is really simple. That we have these solutions that people have figured out over 100 years ago in some situations, and they're really simple when it comes to fixing the healthcare system, education system, criminal justice system. We just need people in office that are willing to do it. And right now, we have a bunch of people who are funded by corporations who take a bunch of hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars from certain industries going into the hands of politicians. And we need to take our government back, and then look at these policies. And I think that right now there's dozens, maybe even hundreds of people throughout the nation that are willing to do it. Not just me. People in your state, people in your district probably running on exactly or very similar to my platform. So, get out there and get involved and be part of this, because we really have an opportunity here. And I guess that's all I'd say.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I've interviewed over 130 people with your platform.
That's awesome.
Since 2018, so in a year.
Yeah, it's happening, and it's probably happening a lot closer to where you live than you might think. There's a lot of cool places, like local Bernie Crats. I'm on there. I think there's a place called Green Papers or Green Pages, one or the other. It'll show you everybody running for every seat in every state. And if you're really, really interested.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you don't think that there are going to be that many people who agree with you, but when you see, I mean, those are just the people I had on, that's not everyone. That's just like literally the only ones I had.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really, it's like, in 2016, it was so obvious this movement was real. I mean, like, it kind of came out of nowhere. Bernie's campaign came up. He was polling at like 0 to 2% or something like that. And then like overnight, it was like people were creating Facebook accounts and had 5,000 friends and created 15 new Bernie Sanders groups and like cell phone apps and all these cool things. Like, it was a really cool time. But what it really showed was that there's 30, 40 million people. There's millions and millions and millions of people out there who are down for this, who want these exact same things. And they don't necessarily care about what package it's in. They just want the policies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Nathan. Can you give your website and Twitter and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, sure. So my website is NathanClayForCongress.com. And Twitter is Nathan Clay Co. @ Nathan Clay Co. is my Twitter. And the Facebook is a little long. It's facebook.com/Nathan Clay for Congress 2020. It's a bit to type, but so those are the social things. We do videos every Saturday at the very least. We've been making like news summaries of basically the stories that we think are either the most important or most influential throughout the week. And then every now and then we have really can be anything, but most of the time it's policy videos. Like the next one that we'll be coming out with here in just a day or two is a proposal that I'd like to increase the size of the House of Representatives. There's a lot of reasons mathematically why it makes sense to do this, and ideologically, and politically too, because the size of the House increased up until the 1920s. So it takes a look at why the House is the size that it is, and why it shouldn't be that size, and why it's causing a bunch of problems. Like there's 700,000 or more people in every congressional district now. So we make videos like that, about 8 to 10 minutes long usually. So check those out. You might like them.
Yeah, you got to see this dude in his videos, because I was like, oh my God, I'm so self-conscious going on the air. I mean, he's so smooth and so well-spoken, and like, and I'm just here like, you know what, F that. But Mindy, one of our team members, wants to know what is that Facebook group called, something green, to name all the candidates?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think you said it was something green.
Me?
Yeah. I think you said it was some.
I mentioned it tonight.
Yeah. It's a Facebook group that it gives all the people running, or it's a website. It gives all the people running who are progressives.
Huh, and you're sure that this was me?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I know I'm on numerous Twitter lists where
Maybe
they
it
show
was
you all the
Twitter.
people running for office, but I'm not really familiar with anything on like a Facebook group or anything like that where.
Okay, I'm not the only one that heard it.
I'm sorry. I guess I just can't place what exactly I said about it.
It could have been Twitter, Facebook, something. It was just, you said there was a place that lists a lot of people, like progressives, and what states they're running in.
Okay, well, I mean, I know that there are numerous places on that happens on Twitter, and I get hit up on that all the time. On Facebook, as far as groups like that, I know of a lot of places for Colorado. So
Okay.
The Collective Social Network has a Colorado specific group, and they have numerous folks listed. Our Revolution around here, and we have Represent Us also around here, and the Democratic Socialists of America. All of those in the Colorado area are very active, and they have a bunch of information about Colorado-specific candidates, and especially progressives and Democratic Socialists. So that I may have been speaking about something like that, but that's more than just a list of candidates.
I think you said Green Pages, or that's what it sounded like.
Okay, sorry, that is not a Facebook group. So the Facebook group thing was throwing me off. It's just a website.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what threw me off. I thought I was like a Facebook group. Okay, so trying to go through there. So Green Papers or Green Pages. I could pull it up real quick, and find out which one it is. It's thegreenpapers.com. Yeah, so thegreenpapers.com. And it has information about everyone who's running for office. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, that's
okay. I didn't do a good job like picking all of it up. So
no, yeah, I got a little sidetracked by the original part of that. But yeah, so the Green Papers, yes, thegreenpapers.com shows candidates. It's especially useful for finding out when people register to run for office in your area, because there may not be any other source that aggregates all of that data for you. So this is like data aggregator from the FEC and various kind of state databases.
Okay, rad. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Nathan, and best of luck with everything in your campaign.
Yeah,
it seems like you're going strong.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on here. It's always great to have an opportunity to let people know what we're up to. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for watching, guys. Next week, I'm going to be going back on the Humanist Report, because I am like pretty much the luckiest person in the universe. And I have someone who agreed to come on who is such an amazing badass, but I'm not going to give his name yet because I want to make sure it's for real.
All right.
Because it's just too cool. And no, it's not Bernie.
Oh, how cool is that?
I would pee my pants. So thank you guys for watching. Again, thank you for joining, Nathan, and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, I'm going to get out of here then.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.